Devata Buddha spoke thus: the person who is big of body, stinking and angry, who is freed from anger only with difficulty, comes from the existence of a camel. One who likes to walk and eats much and is not satiated comes from the existence of a horse. One who walks in both cold and hot and has no pity comes from the existence of an ox. The person whose voice is high and who knows no shame and does not know right from wrong comes from the existence of a donkey. The person who eats meat and is fearless comes from the existence of a lion. The person whose body is long and eyes round, who prefers to wander in wild country and hates his spouse and children, comes from the existence of a tiger. The person who has long hair on his body and small eyes and does not like to stay in one place comes from the existence of a flying bird. The person with evil passions and without love, who likes to kill small animals, comes from the existence of a fox. The person who is brave and valiant, with few desires, and no love of their spouse and children, comes from the existence of a wolf. The one who does not like ornate clothes, who watches thieves, has little sleep and much anger, comes from the existence of a dog. The person who likes looking and speech, who likes sensuality, who does not fix their intentions, and who becomes disturbed at beauty, comes from the existence of a sparrow. The person who loves the company of other people and who speaks much comes from the existence of a minor bird. The person who has red eyes and short teeth, spits when speaking, and wraps his body when lying down to sleep, comes from the existence of a snake. The person who likes to be alone and is greedy for food, and whose sleep at night is short, comes from the existence of a wild cat. The person who breaks walls and commits theft, who is greedy for riches and shows rancour, and has neither close nor distant relatives, comes from the existence of a mouse. Then the Devata Buddha spoke thus: the person who breaks and damages the stupa of the vihara and conceals and spends the wealth of the 3 jewels falls into the Avicii hell. The person who praises himself much and takes himself to be better than, or raises himself above everything, after dying arrives at the 3 evil ways. When the person is freed from that, accordingly acquires the existence of an animal, or a slave woman or a slave, and goes about covered with heavy loads, being a porter for all people. This person always goes about erect, but loses the condition of a human being. But although such an evil action is done, if the person then listens to the Sutra, his body will be freed from evil reproach and from such a sin, and he attains good praise. The one who breaks and damages the stupa of the vihara and conceals and spends the wealth of the 3 jewels falls into the Avicii hell. When freed from the punishment of hell, the person acquires the existence of an animal and becomes both pigeon and sparrow, and goose and duck, and parrot and green sparrow, and fish and turtle, and monkey and gazelle and deer. Likewise, when reborn human, he becomes a eunuch, or a female body, or bisexual, or sexless, or a prostitute. The person who is irascible and of venomous nature acquires the existence of a snake, or lion, or tiger, or wolf, or bear, or wild cat, or falcon, or hawk, and then when later is born human, becomes a pig or chicken fancier, or a butcher, or hunter, or trapper, or prison warden. One who is stupid and does not understand the rule and the law and does not ask or inquire to go and learn, acquires the existence of an elephant or ox or sheep or water buffalo or louse or flea or mosquito or gadfly or even an ant, and later, when born human, becomes both blind and deaf and mute and hunchbacked and crippled and incomplete in all limbs, and cannot receive the law. The person who is proud and contemptuous is born on insecting dung, and becomes both horse and donkey and camel and dog, and when later is born human, becomes a slave woman or a slave or poor, a beggar, despised by all. The person who is a judge and greedy and sees the property of others, after dying falls into the hell of the mountain of flesh, and for 100 years myriad men cut from his flesh and eat it. The person who keeps other persons standing before them excessively, after dying, acquires the existence of an elephant, which is so stiff that it cannot lie down. The person who breaks the fast by eating food at night, when he dies, acquires the existence of a hungry ghost, and for 100 myriad years does not know food, and when walking, fire issues from every joint. The person who prefers to keep people naked, after dying, acquires the existence of the cold animals. One who eats the remains of the fast of people, or takes them home, after dying, falls into the hell of the earth of hot iron, and when later acquires the existence of a person, has the illness of an obstructed throat, and is short-lived. The person who pays homage to the Buddha and does not bring his head to the ground, after dying, falls into the hell of hanging head down, and later, when he acquires the existence of a human, all make a fool of him. One who pays homage to the Buddha and does not join his hands falls into the land of the border countries, and has much trouble and misery, and no success at all. One who hears the sound of the bell and does not rise and make Namo Buddha acquires the existence of a snake, which is long of body, and little insects constantly eat it and nibble it. One who pays homage to the Buddha with hands crossed falls into the hell of tying arms behind the back, and when he acquires the existence of a human, meets unjustly evil misfortune. But the person who joins hands properly and brings the 5 members of the body to the ground, and with a pure mind pays homage to the Buddha, is born always a great chief and noble, who receives much happiness. The person who is irascible and irritable about food comes from the existence of madness. When a man looks unlawfully at the wife of another, his eye will be squinting. The person who, because of his spouse, abuses his mother and father, falls into the hell of cutting out tongues. When someone who adds water to liquor and sells it to others dies, he is born an insect in water, and when later born human, is dropsical with impeded breath, such that he dies. Then the Buddha spoke further to Ananda thus: These many kinds of things that I have explained are all because the person commits the following 10 kinds of misdeed. In the first degree, the person falls into hell, in the second among animals, and in the lowest into the existence of pretas. Number 1. For the sin of killing, the person falls both into hell and into the existence of animals and predators. Then, when later born human, acquires two kinds of retribution. One is that the person is short-lived, and the other is that the person is sickly. Number 2. The person who commits theft falls into both hell and into the existence of animals and predators, and when born human, acquires two kinds of retribution. One is that the person is born poor and needy, and the other is that the person's possessions are united with those of others, so that he cannot act at will. Number 3. The person who practices unlawful desire falls both into hell and into the existence of animals and predators, and when born human, acquires two kinds of retribution. One is that the person's spouse is debauched, and the other is that there is always quarrelling and disputing with the person's spouse, so that matters do not go, or the person's spouse does not behave as the person would like. Number 4. One who speaks lies falls both into hell and into the existence of animals and predators, and when later is born human, acquires two kinds of retribution. One is that whatsoever the person does, everything is subject to damage, and the other is that people constantly injure the person with lies. Number 5. One who is deceitful and two-tongued falls both into hell and into the existence of animals and predators, and when later is born, acquires two kinds of retribution. One is that he encounters relatives who torment him, and the other is that he is attached to irritable relatives. Number 6. He who is evil-tongued and abusive falls both into hell and into the existence of animals and predators, and when later is born human, acquires two kinds of retribution. The first is that the person always hears evil noises, and the second is that whatever the person says, there is always quarrelling and dispute. Number 7. The person who uses ornate words falls both into hell and into the existence of animals and predators, and when born human, acquires two kinds of retribution. The first is that even though the person speaks the truth, nobody believes him, and the other is that whatever the person says, he is completely unable to bring it to an end. Number 8. The person who is greedy suffers both hell and the existence of animals and predators, and when born human, acquires two kinds of retribution. One is that the person is always insatiably greedy for possessions, and the other is that whatever the person seeks and gets, it is not at all as his heart desires. Number 9. The person who is irascible suffers both hell and the existence of animals and predators, and when born human, acquires two kinds of retribution. One is that people seek the person's faults and shortcomings, and the other that they always cause the person pain and suffering. Number 10. The person who has heretical views suffers both hell and the existence of animals and predators, and when born as human, acquires two kinds of retribution. One is that deception is always born in the person's heart. Now, O child of the Buddha, these 10 kinds of misdeed are the cause of all kinds of evil of the way. And then among the great assembly there was a man who had committed the 10 kinds of misdeed. When he heard from the Devatideva these infernal punishments and retributions, he began to weep and lament, and he spoke thus to the Devatideva Buddha. Chief of the world, what sort of good deed should I now do, that I may be delivered from this evil? The Buddha said to him, arrange the minds of all people, and all of you, united together, practice piety and good deeds. For the person who in this existence is a great mind converter is a chief among all people, and whoever makes a vihara or a vihara house will in a future loka be a minister in the royal assembly and a chief of the people, complete and intelligent in everything that is desirable and pleasing to the person's mind. The person too who in this existence arranges the minds of people so that they practice all kinds of good deed will be rich and fortunate in future loka, and will do him honor and regard the man with respect, and in the four directions the way will be open to the person. All work that the person begins will be successful. One who in the present existence likes to light the lamp will be born in a future loka near the sun and the moon, and his bright splendor will always shine. One who gives gifts and is compassionate and does not kill, in whatever place that person is born, will be rich and fortunate, and will not only lack neither possessions nor riches in food and clothing, but they will appear spontaneously. One too who gives food, in whatever place the person is born, divine food will appear spontaneously. The person will be complete in beauty and strength, brilliant, intelligent, eloquent, and long-lived. If one gives a gift to an animal, accordingly the person will acquire recompense 100-fold. If one gives a gift to an ordained person who keeps the precepts, the donor will acquire recompense 1,000,000-fold. But if the person gives a gift to an ordained person, a master of the law, who expounds the law of the treasure of the secret of the great vehicle of the Buddha, who opens the eyes of the great assembly, the donor will acquire countless many recompenses. How much more then, you may ask, will the person who gives a gift to bodhisattvas and to the Buddhas acquire? How much countless recompense the person will acquire? And if the person gives a gift to these three kinds of people, he will acquire recompense without end. If to the Buddhas, and secondly to his mother and father, and thirdly to a sick man, he gave a gift of one meal, so great is his recompense. How much more then, you may ask, one who gives always? How can this person's reward be counted? Now the person who gives the ordained a bath and shall wash their bodies, in whatever place the person is born, will be handsome, and food and clothing will be ready, and from people he will receive honor and respect. One too who loves the Sutra and shall read it and praises and exalts it, in whatever place born, the person's voice is ornate and excellent. Whoever hears it rejoices in their heart. One who keeps the precepts, in whatever place born, will be handsome and among persons the very foremost. The person who digs wells and sets jars of water on the roads so that the travellers may drink, shall plant trees so that persons may sit in the shade. In whatever place born, the person will be a leader of people, and 100 kinds of food and drink, according to the person's desire, will come of themselves. The person who loves to write the law of the sutras and gives it to people for them to read it, in whatever place born, will be eloquent in explanation, and whatever law the person studies, when hearing it once, the person takes it all in and understands it. The bodhisattvas always protect and watch over the person, and among all people the person will be the very first and foremost. The one too who makes a bridge or puts a boat for men to cross, then whatever place born, the person will have the 7 kinds of jewels entirely, and all people will praise and honor the person. Where he goes and arrives, all do him honor and regard him with respect. Then the Buddha said to Ananda thus: "The Sutra and the law which I have expounded in every place, the causes and the effects, exhort all living beings to read them and act upon them, so that they may be saved from evil. But the person who hears this sutra and scorns and slanders it, for as such a person, even in the present world, his tongue shall fall to the ground." Thereupon Ananda addressed the Buddha thus: "O chief of the world, what name should be given to this sutra, and how should we dispose our minds towards it?" The Buddha said to Ananda, "Let the name of this sutra be the causes of the retribution of good and evil, and let its name also be the Sutra of Righteousness, with the desire of becoming a bodhisattva, and let it be understood and kept in that way." Now when the Buddha had finished expounding this sutra, 8 myriad of divine men in that assembly disposed their minds towards utmost complete enlightenment. 1,200 evil men abandoned their poisoned minds and understood the previous loka. Many were the pious men who acquired the view of non-birth and received eternal joy. Many were the dead who were reborn in Pure Lands and who assembled with the Buddha. Then the great assembly all became joyful, and they set out and began to practice piety and good deeds, and accepted the commandment of the Buddha on their heads. Namo Buddha, Namo Dhamma, Namo Sangha. The sutra in which the Buddha has expounded the causes and effects of good and evil.